Thank you, Tom. Thank the whip and the conference chair and Ken Calvert for all his hard work. Let me address some of the big issues that I know are on everybody's mind this morning. This Sunday, the Senate was supposed to release a supplemental funding bill that we've been waiting on for a couple of months now, and it was supposed to have a border security set of provisions in it. That is not what we got. We got a supplemental funding proposal with immigration provisions. It's not a border security bill. It doesn't do anything of the sort. In fact, in our view, after a careful, thoughtful review of this, we believe that if those provisions were to make law, it might actually make the situation worse. Let me give you a couple citations. There's just a few of our countless concerns with the bill and the form that it was sent to us. On page 321, for example, the bill expands work authorizations for illegal aliens, threatens American workers' wages, and also acts as another magnet for illegal immigration. It's a pull factor. You don't want to tell people around the world to come on in over the border. We'll give you work, and by the way, we'll put most of you on public assistance so that the American taxpayer can spend billions and billions and billions of dollars to feed, house, and clothe and educate you. That's not the message that is helpful to send around the world. On page 116 of the bill, it endorses the Biden administration's catch and release policy, endorses it by allowing illegals to be, quote, released from physical custody, unquote. Instead of deciding, asylum on a case-by-case basis, as the law specifically states currently, what they would do is just engage in more of these large-scale releases. The shutdown authority in the bill, you've heard some things said about that, but it's riddled with loopholes. You might not have heard that part. It gives Secretary Mayorkas, who is, of course, one of the chief architects of the catastrophe that we're all dealing with, the authority to undermine that. You can find that on pages 218 and 219 of the bill. Of course, this administration has shown the American people that it will exploit any measure to keep the border open. And the lead Democrat negotiator of this bill made clear to everybody, under this bill, quote, the border never closes. That's what he said, Senator Murphy. In sum, the bill does not secure the border, and it does not prevent illegals from coming into our country. And I don't want to belabor the point every day and repeat the statistics over and over and over, but you all know it well. We've had over 7 million encounters at the border since President Biden took office. We've got over 2 million known gotaways. We've got over 300 people who are suspects on the terrorism watch list. They're all in the country. But the scary thing is we don't know who is in the country who came in completely undetected. We don't know how many people snuck over that border, but we know it's a large, large number. And among that number, we don't know how many of them have ill design for our country. How many of them actually are terrorists or want to be terrorists? We don't know how many terrorism cells are set up around the country. We do know that fentanyl is the leading cause of death for Americans age 18 to 49 because it's pouring over the border like an open sewer, as they say all the time. We do know that human trafficking is a scourge that is benefiting the cartels, which are international violent criminal enterprises. They're making billions of dollars bringing people into our country because the administration allows it to happen. We know all the problems. We know that the communities are being overwhelmed and flooded, from deep blue cities to rural communities. Every state's a border state. All these things are happening. And the same administration that has refused to enforce our current border laws is rolling out to illegal immigrants this welcome mat, saying, come on in. Everybody can see what's happening here. Nothing less than American sovereignty is at stake. Our nation's sovereignty is what is at stake. This transcends politics. It transcends your political party. Everybody should understand that this is a fundamental responsibility of the federal government to secure the border. If you don't have a secure border, you don't have safety, you don't have security, and you don't have sovereignty. And the Republicans simply cannot vote for the bill in good conscience. And that is why I declared it dead on arrival, and it looks like right now it may be in some jeopardy. It may be on life support in the Senate. We welcome that development because this is a matter that must be addressed in a manner that actually solves the problem. We have been urging from day one, literally the day that I took the gavel in late October, been urging the Senate, urging the White House to consider the provisions of H.R. 2. Why? Because our Secure the Border Act has the necessary components to solve the problem. We restore Remain in Mexico, we end catch and release, we reform the asylum broken system, the broken parole process and policy this administration has been pursuing, and we built wall. Those things are necessary to solve the problem, and everybody knows it. It's not Republican talking points, it's the objective fact. We took 64 House Republicans down to the border in January 3rd. I know I sound like a broken record, but, the White House doesn't get it. The people in charge in the Senate don't get it. Chuck Schumer doesn't understand it or care. But what we saw with our own two eyes, I don't know when Chuck Schumer went to the border last. I'm not sure he's ever been. But I can tell you what we saw, an absolute humanitarian catastrophe. Broke our hearts and infuriated us at the same time. It cannot continue. And the people on the border who are charged with enforcing it are the ones who told us that those are the necessary components to fix it. That's why we're so insistent about it. The supplemental seems to be on life support in the Senate. We just can't wait any longer. And so that's why you heard that we're going to move forward on the Israel package, the clean standalone. And the reason we have to do that is because, as Ken Calvert explained, and Elise and Tom have said here this morning, this is a dire situation. We passed the Israel with a pay-for early, I think it was maybe on the day 2 that I had the gavel, very early in my leadership as Speaker, and we put a pay-for on it. That's a really important principle. We want to put that flag in the ground and set a new standard here that supplemental spending has to be paid for, because we also have a $34 trillion federal debt. But we understand now that in the couple of months that have transpired since we passed that the first time, this situation has gotten much more dangerous. The heat has been turned up, and in that theater there, in that region, it's a very, very serious matter. We need to stand with Israel right now, and we cannot wait any longer. And that's why, as desperate times call for desperate measures, that's exactly what we're going to do. I want to say that also last night, the president shockingly threatened a veto of a standalone Israel bill. Now, everybody remember, the number that we're sending over there is exactly what the president himself requested, $14.3 billion, with the addition that Ken Calvert just explained for the extra rebuilding the stockpiles and replenishing our munitions as well. So we're sending the president, don't lose this fact, exactly what he asked for. And he's saying he's going to veto that? Israel is our closest ally and friend in the Middle East, and one of our closest in history. Our nations are inextricably linked because of our joint Judeo-Christian heritage and our traditions and the great love that we have for our friends and allies there. And it is outrageous and shameful that the President of the United States would suggest that he would veto support for them in their hour of greatest need. Israel is fighting for their right to exist as a nation. And the President of the United States wants to play games with us? I don't think so. I don't think the American people are going to go along with that. And I hope they let him hear that. Betray our closest ally at the worst possible time? The President is playing games with a lot of things. And I want to say this too, and I'll take questions. When it comes to the border, the President has suggested over and over for the last couple of weeks that, gosh golly, I wish Congress could act and give me some authority to do something. He knows that's not true. He knows it. His staff knows it. Chuck Schumer knows it. Everybody in this building knows the President has extensive statutory authority right now to take executive action, and he will not do it. He can end, catch, and release. Title 8 of the U.S. Code, Section 1225, has many of these provisions, and there are others, but he could end, catch, and release right now with a stroke of a pen. He could restore, remain in Mexico with a stroke of a pen. By the way, on the border on our trip, they told us that the top officials at Border Patrol said if the President would sign that executive order and restore, remain in Mexico, it will reduce the flow by 70% over the border. 70%. He won't do it. He could enter into asylum cooperative agreements with other nations. He could end the parole abuses, of course. He could detain inadmissible aliens. He could use expedited removal for people, criminals, right? He could rein in taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal aliens. All these billions of dollars that we're all being required to spend, and communities at the national, state, federal level, all around. He could do that right now, but he won't. He could issue a proclamation to suspend or restrict the entry of any category of aliens or all illegal aliens that he wanted. Let me read you that provision. Everybody Google this. You can check it out. It's 8 U.S.C. 1182F. We also call it Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act. And this is what it says. It empowers the President, quote, to suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem appropriate. If the President finds, this is a quote, that the entry of any aliens or any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interest of the United States, unquote. That is what the law says. Been used many times by previous administrations. It was used many times by the Obama administration that Joe Biden was a part of, but this afternoon he wants us to believe that he doesn't really have that authority. It's not really there. Everybody can find it. Go read it for yourself. We're at our wits' end here. The nation is is struggling with all the terrible societal ills that have come with this open border. It is unacceptable. We cannot allow this to continue anymore. And while Congress debates and deliberates and we try to work on some enhancements to the law, we're insistent that it's not necessary. The reason we passed H.R. 2, the reason we made that one of our signature pieces of legislation at the beginning of this Congress when the Republicans took over is because we knew that President Biden was doing the opposite of the law and that we were going to try to tighten as much as we could. And those provisions are important, but again, they're not necessary to stop the problem right now. The president knows it, the authority exists, and we'll continue to remind the American people that it's one individual, the commander-in-chief, the most powerful political figure in this country, who could end the catastrophe that he specifically, and we believe